Hello and welcome to Stephen University. This week we'll be discussing the final episode of the third Stephen Bomb, Friendship. Before we do that though, we were just talking before we started recording, and I said, well, let's quickly have this conversation on the podcast.
Yeah.
But basically, so we're recording episode, God, where are we now? Like episode 67? 68?
Like that,
yeah. So we're nearly 70 episodes in.
We're in.
We
We're
released
far in.
episode 40 into the wild today. And if you're thinking, guys, why are you that many episodes ahead? You know, that's like 30 episodes.
So that we could give you these bombs, baby.
So we
It's a
could do
big
the
part of
bombs.
it.
Because, yeah, right now there's a massive gap. But once the bombs start airing, that gap is going to sharpen very quickly. Yeah. Anyway, so episode 40 went up today on the run, which is one of the first episodes we switched to Chris doing the intro. And Chris's friend who sends him, like, feedback from the episodes was like, yeah, mainly it seems to be people undecided on whether they like me or you doing the intro. Yeah. And he's not wrong.
And I was just like, oh, shit.
Because at this point, we've recorded 30 ahead of Chris doing the intro, so if they don't like it, it's tough.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
I'll be honest, though. I reckon it'll settle. I reckon people will like it.
Yeah, I think
I think it is better. Yeah. It takes a few episodes for us to figure out the best way to do it.
Yeah, I think it's that. Yeah, and I think, I think it's a good lead in. I think. So speaking of which, shall I do it?
Yeah, you should. And
so for all you haters, sorry.
Well, you know what's funny though?
And what's amazing is you're not going to hear this apology for another 10 weeks or so. So
what's really weird though? What's really weird about the responses is no one is like outright going. It's very unlike the internet, actually, because no one is saying, I hate it, you know, screw this, I'm angry.
But those comments could come next week, Dan.
They could, but right now, it's lots of people reasonably going, that's an interesting choice, I can see why you're choosing to do that, can't decide what I prefer. You know, like, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of people being very genuinely quite thoughtful about whether it's better or worse. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how to take that, Chris. I would almost rather people just call me a motherfucker or like tell me they fuck my mom and then just go away. Like, it's the internet. I'm used to that. I know how to handle that. I don't know how to handle reasoned debate. I don't expect that from the internet.
Yeah, it's tough to work out, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway.
Sorry, I'm distracted. I just have to say that this is weird. Like, our windowsill, a picture of my parents and a picture of me and my sister that was in a frame, both in two separate frames. Neither picture is now in a frame, and it's been placed it's just been sort of put in a frame of Jess's mum and sister. And I can't decide whether something happened to the frames or Jess just went, windowsill's too cluttered, fuck it. I'm taking these out of frames, and I'm just going to stick them on the side. So I'll find out and try and remember to let you guys know next time. But anyway, so the episode starts with them. It starts with a bang. Starts with them just immediately finding Peridot. Mm-hmm. Pearl has led them to her, but Aunt Crazy Pearl is in full swing. She's interrupting people. She's trying to be the one to do it. She's jumping in front of people. It's all a bit cray. But Stephen's got his, I use cray ironically, by the way. It is crazy, but I know I sound like a dick. Stephen's pumping out his shield. It's awesome. Pearl fucks things up, gets in the way of Garnet trying to catch her. They go back to the house. There's continuing the intensity that there has been. Mm-hmm. Pearl says she's got another way to catch her, and they end up following her. And Garnet, you could tell everyone's a little bit like, this feels dodgy, especially Garnet, but they go ahead with it anyway. Turns out it's dodgy, and Peridot has trapped them. More fighting ensues. Awesome fighting, by the way, goes without saying. Some really cool visuals, especially when like they're falling deeper and deeper into the trap, and Amethyst like does some cool shit to like save Stephen. With like ropes, or I don't really know how to describe ropes.
It's a whip, isn't it? Her weapon's a whip.
Yeah.
So she whips the cogs to save them.
It's a whip. Yeah, but I think that's the coolest the whip has ever been used. Hence my confusion.
This episode had loads of really good whip use, actually, because there's a bit early on when they're fighting Peridot where Garnet lobs this thing, but not at Peridot. She throws it into the sky, and as it's rocketing upwards, she then goes Amethyst, and Amethyst whips it the whip sort of goes round it, and then she yanks it suddenly downward, and then it fires at Peridot.
Awesome.
It's really cool. Yeah.
There's a lot of great whip stuff.
It's a weird sentence to have to say, but it's true.
This
episode of this kids show had a lot of very good whip use. Are you sure you're watching a kids show?
Use.
Yes, I am.
Yep, great whips, and then
really good use of the whip.
But it's a kids show, so everything else is kid appropriate. Not at all surprising to find in a kids show. Everything else completely you'd expect to see in a kids show. So Pearl ends up trapped with the two lesbian lovers that have formed one body, and they end up chatting. I was wondering where you were going with that.
I couldn't quite. I could see that there was there was signposted that 1 mile ahead there was a punchline, but I for the life of me couldn't see it.
It was a difficult one because I wanted to make it very clear that the joke was you wouldn't expect to see it, not that you shouldn't, because I don't believe that. I think you absolutely should see it.
Yeah.
And
I think that's almost a joke at the expense of the people who had those scenes removed from what episode did we watch? Was it Story for Stephen?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, yeah.
Was it Story for Stephen?
I think it was Story for Stephen. Yeah, because he's explaining how he knows about fusion. Yeah.
No, Story for Stephen is the one where he tells. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, no, Story for Stephen is where he tells how he met Rose. The one where he tells the story about fusion. What was that called?
I don't know.
Who cares? Well, I'll remember in a minute. Carry on.
So they chat, and Pearl kind of says she doesn't feel good enough. She basically, it's a really sweet speech where essentially she says she's lonely. And then Garnet does something really cool where she knows it's about. They're so fucking subtle. Like, what a script, what a show, what a script. Because she's like, you don't need Rose. It's not about Rose. It's not about me. It's not about Rose. It's not about Stephen. And just the undertone and the cleverness of the writing and the subtlety of it's not about Rose, because it's just like. She's obviously talking about her loneliness and Rose and all of that stuff, and it's not, it's just so nicely done, and it doesn't. We've referenced Harry Potter a few times for Harry Potter love. We've referenced Harry Potter a few times for doing a similar thing, which is very much not talking down to the audience, and that line certainly does that. And Garnet says, "But I'm not strong. It actually tore me apart." There's this really cool moment where Amethyst is like, "Did that happen?" And Stephen's like, "Mm-hmm."
Yeah, I really like that moment.
I was there.
I really like that Amethyst didn't no one talked about it. Like, it just goes to show how awkward things have been at home.
Yeah. And I love. Well, to be honest with you, I loved it. And it was comic relief, but it was also just this really great pairing that we do see. But there was something so joyous about every time we cut away to Stephen and Amethyst in this episode.
I would agree.
Including my favourite one being when they're like, "You know what we need to do," and then it cuts to them, and they're like, "Oh no, what do we do? What do we do?" So funny. Anyway, so they're like, "You know what we need to do?" No, she says that she gets strength from Pearl, and Pearl is her own person, and she cool. And then they turn into Sardonyx. They bust out the room, and they then they find Peridot. They nearly capture her. Stephen, who has used his shield loads and acknowledged this week, they said, "Good, you're doing 3 for 3, Stephen," kind of thing. He's got his shield. Now he's just jumping on her. Which makes me laugh, because at some point there was therefore that moment where he ran forward and jumped, and none of the other gems went, "I'm sure there's a better way. No, we're just going to let the kid jump." Oh, fine. They all jump. They end up with her foot, which she detaches. She flies off. They've got the foot. Ends on a foot joke, and Amethyst is like, "Oh, finally!" And the star is on her, which is really cool. I really liked that. That's the episode. But a great end to the week of Sardonyx. It felt. I think they did a really good job with the speech, because they're still so bitter with each other at the beginning of the episode that I personally thought for a moment, they're clearly going to make up in this episode, but are they so bitter with each other now? Am I going to believe the makeup? Like, have they gone too far? But I don't think they do. They script the makeup scenario so well. I don't necessarily mean that because, well, no, I'll tell you what, I think the force two people that are fighting in a room together to talk trope has been done a lot, but I can't really remember and that room is crushing them to their deaths before. Like, I just thought that was a really unique take on it. Like, not only have we got this talk that needs to happen, but there's a threat as well, which there isn't necessarily usually. It's either one or the other. Like, we have obviously the moment in like Sherlock where he thinks the tube's going to blow up and they're in like an abandoned tube car, and Sherlock makes Watson say that he forgives him. So we have had heightened moments, but it's felt like this odd balance between the two things, between like the trapped version and the danger version. Really nicely paced, really nicely written. Whole episode had some great writing, great animation, good times. I thought it was a just end to the week.
Yeah, I think they earned it really well, and I think that one of the things I love most is that the solution to, because I'll tell you how I think they managed to earn it, because I'm with you. At the beginning of the episode, the bitterness was so clear. Even I, knowing how it ends, was like, oh, I'm not sure if this is that convincing. I'm not sure if this is going to be that convincing. I'm completely in agreement with you. You think that they're so bitter here. It's not like they've slowly brought it back over the last couple episodes. We are still almost where we were at the end of the first episode. They are really at loggerheads here. This is going to be a real problem. I don't know how they're going to convince me that these two could potentially make up in 10 minutes. But, silly Dan, because how many times have we complimented the show on doing amazing things in the space of 10 minutes? In fact, I'm pretty sure we say that most weeks. So not surprising, but I think the two things they did which made it really work was the dialogue was obviously great in the room itself, because it wasn't just Pearl apologizing, it was Garnet showing her understanding of where Pearl came from by explaining that she doesn't always feel as strong and confident as she comes across. And that's Garnet showing vulnerability as well, and that's really important, and that really helps earn that moment between them. The second thing I think they did, which is really powerful, is that how they get out of the situation is by fusing. Now, fusing is a sacred thing to Garnet. It's a very, very important part of who she is. And the fact that she'd been lied to regarding fusion was a big source of this. So by having them fuse to get out of that situation was a stroke of absolute, utter genius. Because that was the final proof that we were past it. Garnet was past it. She was finally forgiving Pearl, because to then go and fuse with her is a big moment, considering that was a big part of her anger with Pearl in the first place. So I think they did a really great job switching it around. And the whole time that's all happening, there's a bunch of great comedy from Stephen and Amethyst, and there's a cool chase down of a villain. Like, could you honestly ask for more? The only thing they could have squeezed extra into this episode would have been a song, but where would you have gotten that in?
I always felt, though, when she's like, I'm not as strong as you think I am, I thought, oh god, are we going to get the second part of like the song where she said she's strong? Is this going to be like, maybe I'm not that strong? Who knew? I think part of the reason they were able to do all of that is that they didn't faff. So the episode literally starts with, "We found you," and then we go right into it. Like,
it was like Peridot's version of Saw, wasn't it? Because for those who don't remember, Peridot, like, they find the ship and Peridot basically locks them in it. That's why it's called.
Yeah, but that's later on. I mean, like that initial first fight where they find her.
100%.
Like,
it's straight away.
They just go straight into it.
Absolutely. And it's really well done. But then it sort of becomes a weird Saw storyline, doesn't it? Which is like where Peridot sort of locks them in the ship and has trapped them, and she's like,
maybe that should have been the song. It should have been a villain song where she's like, "Do you like my cones?" or whatever it is coming down on them. Like, there's triangles, isn't there? There's like cones. Does she describe them?
I can't remember how she called them. She keeps calling. This is the first episode that she repeatedly uses the word clod to describe them. The crystal clods.
Yeah.
Or clods. It's like
I thought that was
It's like a weird little German insult, I guess. Like
it's
something she's clearly picked up from Homeworld.
The equivalent of Muggle.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Either way, she was.
I'd love it if you thought I was going to say something really bad. Then,
I had no idea where you were going with that. Like, there was no way I was getting that. There was no way I was getting that, no matter what you said.
Chris, don't.
But
don't
I do love
the C-bomb.
Yeah, I couldn't. You were either gonna go innocent like Harry Potter, or you were gonna go really filthy, and I couldn't quite figure out which way. Anyway, I really love some of the running jokes that they kept as well. Peridot still seems to think Stephen isn't a human, but a species of his own named as Stephen. Yeah, that's cool. A great joke. What else? I loved the good morning moment. when they first meet her. I think that was really great. And then he's like, "Have a nice weekend."
I like that. No, yeah, but that's an example as well of what I'm about to say. It felt like this, potentially more than any other episode, certainly more than an episode that springs to mind at the moment. No line of dialogue was wasted in this episode. Every line was like either a great joke, or it made like so that, and another throwaway line that could have been a throwaway is this planet's clearly got a sell-by date and it's now, or something like that, and you just felt like it was a throwaway line referring to the moment, but it just kind of reminded you, and you felt the bigger threat of like the whole impending, gem situation.
Well, I mean, do you remember that there was conversation overheard by, I think, Stephen on the ship between Jasper and Peridot, and they mentioned they were talking about things still happening on Earth. Like there was a hint at something going on there. They used the word the cluster. Which is obviously still relevant. It's the show again, like you said, never wastes a line. That's certainly something that will come back. But you've got to imagine that whatever Peridot is now trying to do on Earth, clearly it's not escape anymore. Because she's still trying to repair the warp pads, I suppose. But she wasn't making much of an effort to repair the old ships.
No, it didn't look like it. She was cursing the technology. In fact, she was like, "Oh, this old gem tech."
Yeah, she hates it. So it's really cool as well to finally get confirmation of how the gems got to Earth, because the warp pads couldn't have existed before the gems. Mm-hmm. So if the gems were an invading force, sort of using Earth's resources to make more gems, like an invading alien army or whatever, I kept thinking, how did they get there initially? You always assumed it must be by ship because they obviously built the warp pads, but it was never confirmed, so it was always a bit vague. Well, or do the warp pads precede the gems somehow? It was always a bit of a question mark for me of how gems initially arrived on Earth. So seeing those old spaceships, I thought was like a really cool. So they've managed to sneak in a tiny bit of, admittedly, kind of irrelevant, but still very interesting mythology.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't been thinking that, but when you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, because you just sort of have to. You can't, because again, you can't assume that the warp pads occur naturally. That doesn't make sense. So
yeah, no, you're right.
So yeah, the idea that they'd gotten there initially that way was cool.
In terms of what I did say though and think, I predicted that this would be about Yellow Diamond. So got that wrong.
You finally got one wrong.
Completely. Huh?
You finally got one wrong. Yeah, forgot about that. Because people are getting annoyed at you now for getting stuff right. There was a comment on last week's, the one that was, I think there's an episode where you bring up Garnet's fusion again before you've seen Jailbreak. And her eyes come up, and you go, yeah, there's weird stuff about her in there because she had 3 eyes. And you went, unless she has 2 gems, and one of them has 2 eyes, and one of them has 1. And someone in the comments was like, Chris, stop spoiling Jailbreak for yourself.
Well, I did, that's a fairly, logical thing to say.
No, I know you connected the dots. I understand. You took observable information and made a theory based on it.
They would. Yeah,
absolutely. But I suppose it must be frustrating from the listener's perspective because I think they were hoping for a moment of like
my big surprise,
which I suppose they're never gonna get because you figured it out ahead of time.
My big surprise and joy from Jailbreak was the song.
Yeah, the song was so good.
I could love that
song. Was so good. I'll have that on vinyl soon. I keep saying it, but it's I'm still excited about it. It doesn't change.
Your book still hasn't arrived, and I'm seeing you next week. So
that's right. So I turned 30. Dirty word this year, and Chris very nicely got me a gift for my birthday because in his words, it's a big un.
Got a but well, I felt it deserved a gift, and sorry, in my head we were talking about your penis. It was a book on I can't remember what it's called, but it's the book about with illustrations and about the history of the animation
artwork.
Of the show.
It's the art book from the development of the show, which someone posted.
So I can't look at it.
Well, no, you cannot. Absolutely, you cannot. When it arrives, you're unable to look at it. But I will say what I thought was really cool. Someone posted a single page from it on Reddit the other day, and it made me laugh so much. It's a thing that Rebecca Sugar, I think, drew for the artists about Garnet's hair, about making it flat or making it 3-dimensional, and she was really it was really written quite sarcastically. It's hard to explain. I'd have to actually have it in front of me, but it was really neat. So I'm looking forward to seeing the whole book.
Yeah. Well, like I say, it's not arrived, so I was hoping it would arrive before we meet up.
Yeah, because you're coming along. It's called Art and Origins. That's it.
Yes,
that's the one.
Yes. It said it was meant to be like October 1st. I suppose it's not October 1st yet in their defence, but anyway.
Is it just because it's come from the States or something? What was the?
I think so. I think it must be. Yeah, I don't know why it's coming from the States. Well, maybe
they didn't release it.
Only been available. Yeah.
Also, it's probably huge because I think it's a proper table book thing, isn't it? It's a.
Oh, cool.
I think it's What do they call it? A coffee table book.
I might leave it in the packaging then because I can't look at it anyway, and it'll be easier to get across London.
Yeah.
Anyway, did you have any other notes on the episode, Dan?
I did, and I've scrolled away from them to look at the Art and Origins book listing so I could remember the title. Let's have a look. How is that trivia? Okay, to the person who writes the trivia for the Steven Universe wiki, this is the second episode in which Pearl and Garnet fuse. That's not trivia. That's just what happened in the show. I'm just pointing that out. I just find that really strange. They found it. They note in this actually, which I thought was really interesting, that when Peridot shoots the energy blast from her fingers, which is a thing we didn't know she could do anyway, but when she does, she seems quite shocked, and the kickback seems to really take her by surprise, implying that she probably doesn't use that very often. So again, reaffirming
she's probably had nothing to shoot at.
Well, that's what I'm thinking of. It's like, it's interesting because it sort of reaffirms this sort of established way. Peridot seems not to be much of a fighting gem. She does seem to be more of a science, like scout type gem, where she's she was on Earth like looking at the warp pads before she knew about the crystal gems. Then even when the crystal gems showed up, she came back with Jasper, who is obviously much more physical. The Hulk Hogan gem, as has been described in the past. I can't remember who described it as that, but I found that quite funny.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah. That's another good one. So I think the idea that they're continuing to push this notion that she's more of a thinker than a fighter. I think it's really neat that little details like that are still in the show. Like even the artists know enough to know to like show her surprised at the gunshot. And I suppose it's because they don't write scripts for the show, so there isn't a disparity between the people making the images and the people making the words. Like they're doing, it's all cohesive and happening at once. The storyboard artists are writing the dialogue. So I think that's why things like that end up happening. They get to put a lot more visual jokes and stuff in there, and visual little references to the other stuff. So I thought that was really cool. What else?
I think it's pretty neat.
Let's have a look. I'm sure I saw other things. I can't think of. There's another thing here, but it could arguably be a spoiler. There's a hint in this episode that hints to something. There's two actually. There are two things that happened in this episode. I was wondering if you'd spot because they hint to future stuff, and it doesn't sound like you picked up on either.
Well, I haven't checked Wikipedia this week, so I don't know. That's a joke. Very much a joke. No, nothing. But it's so quick this episode. I think.
It breezes by, doesn't it?
Quick and fast paced. Like I was amazed. Like I don't know if I touched the screen or something, but the time stamp. I got the time stamp up at some point, and it was like 5 minutes had gone by, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I honestly think it's it is brilliantly animated as well. And I think it would be easy to watch this episode and go, oh, because of all the fight stuff, that was some of the coolest animation we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But I legitimately think it was also one of the best scripts because it feels, and maybe I'm talking bollocks, and I've never been there. I'm not in that writer's room or whatever, so I could be talking crap. But it feels to me that if you started this show mapped out and went, okay, Garnet's a fusion. Okay, cool. Right, this Rose and Pearl had a thing. When those moments are then executed, it's probably been percolating. It's probably been discussed how it would be revealed. You are probably revealing it in a similar way to the way it came out in those discussions and all of that stuff. This is... So, whilst some of those episodes have been written amazing as well, this is the resolution to a fight, which is, so this hasn't been, well, as far as I'm aware, this hasn't been sat there since series 1. It could have been an idea since series 1, but I think that's what feels so impressive to me about the writing. It's like this is awesome and captivating, and it's not even a big mythology reveal. Yes, it kind of feels like it is, because it is the final of what you could argue is a 5-part story, or 4 parts and last week's episode, or yesterday's episode. But I say jest, I like that episode.
It's a good episode. It's just badly placed. We had that conversation.
Yeah. See the previous episode for our thoughts on that. But you know what I mean? I think that's why it just feels, in particular, the script is jumping out at me on this.
Yeah, and I think what it is, it's the difference between, like, something that just is epic and huge. So no matter how you reveal it, not that they revealed it badly here, but the Garnet Fusion thing, I'm not being funny, but a terrible show could make that awesome, because it's such a good idea at its core.
Yes, that's a better worded description.
Because it's such an epic concept. Even if you executed it and sort of did a couple of missteps, it would still come across really well. Same with, what was the other example you had of something that they revealed? You had 2.
Rose and Pearl.
Yeah, that, again, such a big thing and has such a huge impact on the show, because it changes the way you see all of the past events and where it's going. It really does have a huge impact on the overall. This is, as you put it, such a small-scale thing. It's 2 characters falling out, which could be the plot of a single episode and resolved within 10 minutes and not be a big deal. They've managed to make that plot feel as important, as impactful, and as valuable as those other plots, which are that by default. And that can only be achieved by incredible writing. You can only achieve giving something small that level of scale and importance by being brilliant at writing. And the crazy thing is, these episodes aren't even strictly speaking written. That's why this show blows my mind so often. Most shows couldn't achieve this with writers in a writer's room scripting every word and crafting every single thing for months at a time. It's amazing what they managed to do in this show. There are full-fledged 40-minute dramas out there that can't tell stories as well as this show can. And that's what blows my mind about it every single time. Every single time.
And it's such a shame. Like, I'm trying so hard. I just keep making references to Jess. Like, why do we watch an episode of Steven Universe? And she's only seen those first 2, and she's just like, no. Like, and it's such a shame that you have to power through a little bit at the beginning. Yeah,
it is a shame. But I think I wouldn't change it, because first of all, you feel like you're in a bit of a secret club once you get into Steven Universe. You really do. It's weird. But second of all, I think the fact that those first few episodes are so sort of hit and miss for new viewers, it's because it's world building, and I think that world building is really valuable to what they end up achieving later on. I don't think Garnet's reveal in Jailbreak, or even the reveal of Lapis in Ocean Gem Mirror Gem, none of that is anywhere near as powerful or as impactful if you haven't had the world nicely set out and coloured and explored a little bit first, so that you feel the impact of those moments. So I wouldn't change it for the world, and even I wouldn't even try and make those opening couple episodes more accessible. I think that's kind of part of the initiation of Steven Universe. But what I love about this podcast is it captured that. We managed to and a few other podcasts have done it. I know that Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, did it for Adventure Time. At the same reaction, where his first episode viewing, he was just like, why is there a stretchy dog? Why does he wear a hat? What is this? Why are there candy people? Why are there zombies? I don't understand what is happening. So your anger and confusion at the first episode it's not something that no one's ever captured before like this. But I love that we were able to do it with you, because I think that you've come around to the show in a way that I couldn't have even dreamed of. Like, even in my wildest dreams, you were never going to get us into this show as you've gone.
No, it's great, and this episode I think highlights all the reasons why, and is a good way to end 10 episodes of this podcast within the space of 12 days.
Mad.
So
what are you guys?
Return to 2 a week next week.
Yeah, for a bit.
You'll be pleased to know. Yeah. I assume.
Yeah. We got Nightmare Hospital coming up. Sadie's song. There's a couple now. Before we get into the third one, we got a nice little gap before we hit the. Before we hit the fourth bomb.
Is Sadie's song, yes, that woman you think is my mum, I assure you. It's got to be her mum. Why have they not confirmed that? I can't even remember what episode she appears in.
She was.
What her name is.
She was in.
I just know there's a woman that I was like, that's Sadie's mum, right? And you were like, they've not confirmed that, but yeah.
I didn't say, but yeah, I did say I won't confirm it. To clarify, it was in Love Letters when Jamie was too lovesick with Garnet. He stopped delivering the post.
Yeah, she was the other postwoman.
Yes.
Yeah, but other postman.
She replaced Jamie as the postman for Stephen's area, and she was like, you're Greg's kid. So whoever she is, she certainly knows of Greg. So she's clearly a local.
Sadie's mum.
I mean, look, what do you want from me? I confirm it. And if okay, let's live in a world where that's definitely true.
I thought you said it hadn't been confirmed on the show.
No, I haven't said that at all.
No, well, it's Sadie's mum then.
I said I'm not confirming it because I don't want to get yelled at in YouTube comments.
Don't YouTube comments. Sadie's mum.
You do seem very confident.
Sadie's mum's a postman.
You know what's really bothering me, actually? I'm looking at it. We're only going to get like 3 or 4 weeks of just do a week, and then we go back to another bomb.
Way! Bomb 4.
Bomb 4. Bomb 4's great, though. I like Bomb 4 a lot.
What's next week?
That's a teaser, actually. Bomb 4 has one of my all-time favourite episodes in it.
Ooh.
Like, in my top couple, for sure.
Ooh. Oh, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're heading towards an arc now that I really... Because, you know, in this episode, they talk about, let's capture Peridot, and it'll be the end of this sort of era, you know. I sort of do separate the show sometimes into little eras. You know, you think of pre-Lapis, then the post-Lapis era of they're coming back. Then you've got the post-Jailbreak era, which is the era in which Stephen sort of grows up because he's the impact of what happened in Jailbreak and in the Return is so, you know, weighted on him. And now we're about to hit sort of another era of the show.
Is the era we're about to hit the era of Sadie wondering whether to continue to work in the donut shop or follow her mum's dream for her and become a postwoman?
I will say with confidence that is not what
spoilers. He spoiled it for me, guys. He spoiled it. He said that wasn't the era. Yell at him in the comments.
You just like seeing me get yelled at in the comments, don't you? You take such pleasure in it.
If you're still listening and haven't taken umbrage to me doing the intros, it's possible.
I don't think anyone's going to be that mad. They might be a little. I don't know. No one was that mad this week. It's just it was really interesting to see so many people weighing in on it. It's such.
I'd love it if next week if our next episode opens with us being like, so people were mad.
Yeah, it might do. I mean, I'm not going to rule that out. We'll see. I mean, what can you do?
The next episode potentially might be a little bit different. We might be in the same room for the next episode.
Oh, that's right. We've only done that once so far for Stephen and the Stevens. So, yeah. Interesting.
Cool.
Well, there you go. That's everything for this week. I think we'll speak to you next week when we discuss Nightmare Hospital, which is one of the first episodes that I had to wait for because I caught up as this bomb was going on, the one we're in now, I think, and if memory serves. And then there was my first hiatus experience was the gap between the episode we've just watched and Nightmare Hospital. Okay. And I tell you, the bloody hype, Chris. Okay. I honestly, I can't say enough that I was eager.
I hope it's not a letdown.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to make any aspersions on the quality of the episode. I'm explaining to you because you won't experience it this way. But no, like having seen such a great episode just then, imagine. So this airs in July. Imagine having to wait till like late September for the next episode.
That is a long time to wait.
It's a good couple of months. Didn't much like it. Didn't care for it at all, Chris. Because I just had 2 bombs pretty close to each other.
Yeah,
I was not happy.
Fair enough.
Wow. What, any predictions based on the title Nightmare Hospital?
I'm hyped for it, mate. I think it's going to be fucking brilliant. Based on this last episode being great and, the fact that they gave a bit of time between.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say that I've not learnt from, what you experienced, but I'm pumped. As long as it's not a weird, funky dream with animation, I'm fine.
Cool.
As long as it's not weird. Nightmare Hospital. Who's that creepy dude? Would it
be a spoiler to tell you which character it focuses on? Because there's always a character focus, isn't there? So it's always like it's a Greg episode, or because the show is always quite good at just being like, no, this week we're focusing on somebody. Would it be a spoiler for me to tell you which character it is?
Well,
do you think people will be mad at that?
Yeah, go on. Tell me which character.
Should we test the water?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a Connie episode.
Oh, now I'm hyped.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if that's a spoiler or not. I'll tell you what, we'll test the water here. Let us know in the comments if I've annoyed you by telling Chris that, or if that's fine. That might be fine. I don't know.
Let us know, and then in 20 episodes' time, we'll give you feedback on your feedback.
Oh, I forgot about that. I kind of hate doing this so far in advance for that reason. There's such a disconnect. There's a disconnect of like 3 months between us. It's horrible.
You think you're mad about the intros? Wait until 20 episodes end with Dan spoiling shit for me.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, see you next week, guys. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
We'll speak to you on Tuesday as we discuss Nightmare Hospital.